Well folks, let's get back to our roots a little. I've been itching to do some debunking, and I saw a debate recently on Modern Day Debate that forced that itch to be scratched. Today we'll be breaking down this debate piece by piece, covering all the significant points, and we'll be doing this for two reasons. First, I'd like to highlight how flat earth arguments haven't evolved whatsoever since 2015, and how Nathan continues to regurgitate the same old long debunked nonsense. Second, I'd like to highlight where the two globe proponents could have done much better. One in particular, Word of the Wild, wasted a lot of time and gave Thompson too much fuel to feed his arguments with. The other, Snake Was Right, did much better but remained too passive, allowing Thompson's points to go relatively unrefuted. Let's get into it, shall we? Get your popcorn. Snake begins by making some good points poking holes in flat earth. The magnitude of the conspiracy is too grand, the wealth of information needing to be faked at all times is too immense, and that flat earthers hold double standards toward evidence.
Yeah, today we're going to be debating the flat earth, and basically, from my understanding, flat earthers kind of arrive at their conclusion based on they don't understand how things like how do water and Australians how do they not just fall off the quote bottom of the sphere, and how a globe can spin and fly through space at high speeds without throwing us off, how air doesn't escape the vicinity of the globe, and combined with not understanding like basic forces, they don't understand the globe model. So then flat earthers makes more sense to them. It has this crippling reliance on a vast global conspiracy to cover up the true shape of the earth because of all the scientific consensus towards the otherwise. There's no gain from covering up the shape of the earth, nor is there a means to do so, even though it's completely reliant on it. So the amount of coastline that would be need to patrol and stop exploration is greater than all the continents on the earth except for Antarctica. And that's an impossible task and just physically, and to cooperate with all the nations who can't agree on anything anyway. And then we have live feeds from multiple satellites all around the earth, and you can't fake those because they're constantly updating the weather patterns. So you could easily debunk them at any time by going to some random place on the globe and comparing the weather patterns. And it's not possible to fake because you would have to have literally hundreds of thousands of data points photoshopped every 5 or 10 minutes.
So far so good. However, we begin to falter when Word of the Wild gives his intro. Let's listen.
But for this debate, here's my opening thing here. I wanted to offer an alternative conspiracy theory. So I want to admit and agree with my opponents that NASA and the government and most, if not all, of our civic overlords don't have our best interest at mind. Many, if not all of them, are deceitful, corrupt, full of lies. And I agree with most of my flat earth friends that the world we live in is a hostile and scary place, thanks to the tyrants who lord over us. But it's also a wonderful and awe-striking world in spite of them. And I want to have solidarity with my globe skeptic brothers in that we are subject to the hegemonic ruling class, and we can't always trust what comes down from above in the media or otherwise. Our world is run on greed, death-dealing, revenge, lies, and avarice.
There was maybe one sentence in there that was relevant, the one about not being always able to trust those at the top. It could have been just that and been a much better made point. Instead, Wild has opened the doors for the flat earthers to now fall back on this statement for the entire debate, and it's one they will use to nullify any and all evidence from space agencies. That's one of my biggest problems with flat earth debates. The mountain of evidence and information available from space agencies instantly debunks flat earth, and they constantly get away with dodging the argument because the government can't be trusted. So, to use my own opinion to counter Wild's statement, I would like to say that sometimes some government officials do not have our best interests at heart. Governments are made of people, and people are susceptible to corruption through power. However, they are also part of a system that is designed to protect the people, leading to a natural feedback loop of well-cared-for citizens repaying their governments through economic growth. Will corruption seep into the cracks? Absolutely. Is it all the time, or even most of the time? I don't think so. Now, let's do a highlight reel of all the debunked points the flat earthers use in their intro.
I have a link right here to NASA's website saying a model frequently used is that of a flat and non-rotating Earth. I can see a sunset at a 6-foot height from one Hawaiian island to another. Do I even have to bring up the fact that globe versus flat went to court in the state of Georgia in 2019? And guess who won? Flat Earth won. You can see a 9,000 kilometer squared area in the Bolivian salt flats, and guess what? It's all flat. Because if the airplane at 35,000 feet in altitude is going at a cruising speed of 500 miles an hour, you should be dipping down 2,700 feet per minute. You can't have gas pressure without a container. By the way, there's 2 gravities.
And I've debated NASA employees. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson, 6 million followers on Twitter, the most famous PhD astrophysicist in the world, says you can't see the curve of the Earth. So level and horizontal, flat, smooth. Also, the Chicago skyline, they said you're seeing a mirage when it has no properties of a mirage. You could just see the skyline. These people aren't even trying to debunk the globe. They're just trying to take really, really far pictures with their camera, and they're competing with each other. They don't even know they're debunking the globe. Then you've got the black swan, which falsifies the radius value for the Earth. Astronauts say the Earth is flat from low Earth orbit. You don't see a globe. The Georgia Guidestones, I was just there. I did an observation. All the stars rotate around one hole. That doesn't work on your spinning monkey ball blasting through. Also, shadows are black, not glowing red. A lunar eclipse is glowing red. And if you say hello and then NASA bloopers, I mean...
Okay, there was a lot of stupid in that opening. Since I don't remember exactly what gets discussed next since I'm rewatching this while I write, I'm going to do something here. I know at least some of these points are eventually refuted, but because not all of them are, I'm going to do it right now. Number 1, NASA documents quote a flat Earth. Yep, they do for short-range simulations that don't take those factors into account. Let's take a look at the first one. Derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model. The sentence says, this report details the development of the linear model of a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. Let's note that first of all, it's about development of a model. The modeled aircraft is rigid, while real aircraft are not, and it's of a constant mass, while a real plane loses mass as it consumes fuel to fly. None of this document takes place in the real world. Number 2, sunsets debunk the globe. Nothing Davies said had any qualifying evidence of this being the case, plus a sunset moving away would not be cut in half by the horizon. Next. Number 3, Flat Earth won a court case. No, a Flat Earther won a court case against a globe proponent who failed to provide evidence for the globe. So all that court case means is that a Flat Earther legally won a debate. Whoop-de-doo. Kent Hovind beat Godless Engineer in a debate, but the Earth still isn't 6,000 years old. Number 4, salt flats are measured flat. This is a point I know for a fact doesn't get refuted correctly, and the refutation is actually very simple. All one needs to know is how the flatness of an area is determined. It's determined using the flattening ratio, which is a measure of the compression of a circle or sphere to form an ellipse. The curvature of the Earth is actually taken into account when determining the flatness of land. Number 5, pilots don't dip their planes down. This is a Pratt and the answer is simple. Yes, they do, gravity does it for them. Airplanes are traveling in a constant ellipse, moving forward and down at the same time, but due to the force of their engines, they produce enough thrust to continue the trajectory along the center of gravity. Number 6, gas pressure without a container. Another Pratt and easy to debunk. We don't have gas pressure, we have atmospheric pressure. The simple existence of the pressure gradient proves the existence of space. Number 7, there are 2 gravities. This is a half-truth. Newtonian gravity works for most things, and Einsteinian gravity answers the bigger questions. Newtonian gravity was never debunked, it simply described a phenomenon, and then Einstein described the cause of the phenomenon. Now on to Nathan's points. Number 1, Nathan has debated NASA employees. No, he hasn't. He debated one guy in a Starbucks who gave him some NASA stickers and might have been a janitor at Johnson or something. His identity and job were never confirmed, and he didn't debate the guy anyway. He harassed him until he was kicked out. Number 2, but Tyson says. I don't care what Tyson says. Aside from the fact that he was talking about visibility versus precise measurement, he's not a flat earth debater and he doesn't know your arguments. Quote mining him doesn't work in your favor because this clip exists.
The Earth isn't flat.
Number 3, flat means level. No, it doesn't. See attached image. Number 4, the Chicago skyline is not a mirage, except it is. The simple fact that you cannot see it all the time is all the evidence needed. Number 5, record distance photos. Those don't have any math taking refraction and observer height into account. Number 6, the black swan debunks the globe. Nope, unless that more distant oil rig had a serious accident of some kind. Number 7, astronauts say the Earth is flat from low orbit. No, they don't, and orbits only work around spheres. Number 8, star trails don't work on globe Earth. Yes, they do. Explain retrograde Mars on a flat Earth. I'll wait. Number 9, shadows aren't red. They are when they're being refracted through the atmosphere. Number 10, NASA bloopers. Every single individual clip that a flat earther refers to as a NASA blooper has a reasonable explanation. It needs to be done on a case-by-case basis, but it boils down to seeing what you want to see, not understanding technology, and outright lying. So, now the opening points are over, and we begin open discussion. Let's skip to something relevant.
So, do you not
Snake,
understand why models are used in science?
Snake, I want to go over all your globe proofs.
I asked a question.
Nobody
question.
lives on a model.
Oh,
Who
okay.
cares?
Well, I didn't know you had the floor.
Yeah, so that's why I
Did
asked the
someone give you the floor?
question. That's why I asked the question. Do you not understand why we use them?
You're a scientist?
Oh, okay. Well,
Hold on.
Yeah.
You're a scientist?
Yeah,
Okay, give me the
I'm
two.
a cell biologist.
Okay, so then.
So, are you going to answer the question?
We don't live on a model.
Snake is performing very well out of the gate. He's trying to make a point and they're trying to divert, but he's very good at staying on point as he continues to swing back to, do you not understand why we use models? What he wants them to acknowledge is that scientific models are used as a representation of reality, and if it doesn't work in reality, it's not part of the working model.
Do you understand
Nathan,
why we use
Nathan,
models
do
in
you
science?
live on that globe right there that you have in your house? Do you live on it?
no, we don't. Models are concepts. They're abstract.
Exactly.
They're not real. These
Don't
guys
need
aren't
them.
here to talk about what's real.
Not what
they
I
want
asked.
to gaslight, and they say they don't understand it. Dude, I was a glober for 30 years. I thought Earth was a globe for 30 years. So if you're
Hey, by the way, guys,
these guys just
his
don't
whole
understand
opening-
anything about the globe.
Not
Hold
what
on,
I
his whole
asked.
opening is you don't
Can you
understand.
answer the question?
That's an ad hominem attack and a logical fallacy. You know what logical fallacies are according to Purdue University?
It's cute when they try to sound smart, isn't it? Both Nathan and Davey have falsely called fallacy here. First, Nathan says Snake's assertion that they don't understand, which is not an assertion Snake has actually made, is a form of gaslighting, except that isn't what gaslighting is at all. Gaslighting is trying to convince the other person that something they experienced never happened, entirely different. Second, Davey claims that the assertion is an ad hominem. It's not that either. Ad hominem would be saying, you are wrong because you don't understand, but Snake is simply asking a question and waiting for the answer. The flat earthers are jumping the gun and, as usual, acting like calling fallacy is the end-all be-all answer to everything. It is worth noting that a fallacy can sometimes be used to reach a correct conclusion, though the reasoning is flawed. Next, James allows Word of the Wild to reset the tense situation. Not the best idea, as we'll see.
Let me ask Waters Level something since he's got to go here pretty soon. I notice I don't understand why people who are globe skeptics, they will try to use measurements to disprove the globe. Like why don't you just throw out all measurements? Like how come you'll accept some measurements and some methods of gaining measurements and then dismiss others?
I just gave you a sunset that's supposed to be obstructed at 3 miles in front of me. Why is it not being obstructed until 100 or 200 miles?
I know. I'm saying I don't.
That's an actual measurement.
I say I don't know how the science works, and you don't either.
Yes, I do. What are you
Well,
talking about? I don't either. I just gave you an actual measurement, and you're saying you don't understand science. This is a
You
measurement.
use models selectively when it works for you.
I don't
Do
live
you know
on a
why?
model.
Do you know why models are used?
We don't live on a model. That's a reification.
That's not my
fallacy.
question. I didn't ask you
Another
if we live on a
logical
model.
fallacy.
I didn't
I don't
ask
live
you
on
if
a
we lived
model.
on a
I
model.
live in reality. Here in reality, on this physical Earth, I can prove that it's not a globe.
Good thing I
Using
didn't
science.
ask that. I asked you why we use them.
All right.
I don't need to
Can I-
use a model to prove that the Earth. I don't even have to prove
Not
that
my
the
question.
Earth is flat.
Davey,
That's a
Not my
very
question.
reversal fallacy. I don't need to prove that the Earth is flat. The Earth is freaking flat. Look at it right there. You should see vertical drop, but you don't.
Shouty Man Davey is really adding nothing to the debate. He's calling out fallacies because he's heard others do it before, and a better moderator would be calling him on this. Alas, we're on MDD, where open discussion is held on a tinder pile inside of a dumpster. For some time, Snake continues to ask the same question about the use of models, while Davey shouts that models are not reality and everything is a fallacy. Word of the Wild again tries to play the nobody knows card, and it's a shit card, and I'd like him to rethink it. Next, Nathan puts them on we see too far arguments, and I hate these because flat earthers are bad at math, and quite frankly, so am I. Snake only refutes it by claiming their observations are a straw man, and while he's right, he's not explaining it well enough. The short answer is, flat earthers fail to account for all factors including refraction and observer height. Following this, when asked for proof of the globe, Snake brings up Lake Pontchartrain. Nathan tries to derail this by saying he's done his own observations there, but never actually provides any evidence for this. It's eventually ground to a halt when Word of the Wild says, some pictures show flat, some pictures show curves, so what? Again, an absurd point, as on a globe model, some pictures would be expected to look flat, and on a flat earth model, no pictures would be expected to look curved. Shouty Davy again brings up his salt flats measurements, and Snake tries to bait him into explaining the process of the measurements, but never quite gets there, hence me covering it myself.
Taylor, is getting a rock and dropping it on the floor scientific evidence? Yes or no?
It's an experiment, so yeah.
Okay. Give us the dependent and the independent variables.
The independent variable, the independent variable is the rock. Are you listening?
You said the independent variable is the rock?
That's
the thing you're going to change.
Please proceed.
The dependent variable
you're proving
is what direction?
Rock. Let's prove rock. Okay, what's the dependent variable?
Is where it goes.
Where it goes. Okay, you got this. Okay?
Hilarious.
So here's the naturally occurring phenomenon, rock where it goes. Independent variable, the thing you're going to manipulate, rock. And dependent variable, the effect, where it goes. Now, let's see. The cause of that would probably be you picking it up and throwing it. Brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. Bravo.
And in today's episode of Flat Earthers Don't Understand the Purpose of an Analogy...
I know airplanes work. The FAA trains pilots to fly on a flat, non-rotating Earth. So why are we talking about airplanes other than the fact
because
they prove
you
the flat Earth?
no, because you trust that the science behind them works.
Yeah, and they fly over a flat, non-rotating Earth.
And then,
That's
but at what point? So, but why not?
Back to
But why not space rockets?
Well, because space is fake, violates the second law of thermodynamics. NASA's been caught with green screens, harnesses, wires, hairspray, bubbles in space, people ghosting out of screen, things disappearing and reappearing out of
so
air.
NASA.
I knew you wouldn't let me finish all the bloopers NASA has. I knew you were going to have to interrupt.
I haven't seen these proofs, but I'm wondering. NASA doesn't just make space rockets. They make other things that I think you would agree work, and you trust them.
What does NASA make besides space rockets? They're a space agency, bro.
Do they make?
What are you going to talk about? Tang and Velcro?
They make other kinds of planes, don't they?
And this is why Word of the Wild is ill-equipped. He doesn't know enough about NASA to fight back on every point Nathan has made. At this point, I would be pointing out that every supposed blooper he's ever seen is easily explainable, and that yes indeed, Nathan, the first A in NASA stands for aeronautics. They do a ton more than launch rockets. I doubt anyone on this panel even understands that NASA has never even built a rocket in their entire history.
Bill Nye, the science guy.
I don't think he could at all.
No, dude, the dude's a total doofus. So he's allegedly like a science guy, right? So engineers build planes. The mainstream science guys are doofuses that tell you boats go over the curve of the Earth. Bill Nye said boats go over the curve of the Earth. Uh-oh, somebody better tell Neil deGrasse Tyson that, because he said you can't see the curve from 120,000 feet. Now, do you see the problem here? Bill Nye says you can see the curve from the beach. Neil deGrasse Tyson says you can't see the curve from a Red Bull space jump. There's a problem there. So it's not about not believing him. The story doesn't add up. Neil deGrasse Tyson posted Earth rotates under field goals, and that's why this one field goal was made on the Super Bowl at this particular latitude, trying to sound smart on his Twitter. The problem is, if Earth rotates under field goals, it would rotate under everything else in the air.
But that doesn't seem to me to be.
Insect.
that doesn't seem to me to be a reason to mistrust the whole of the scientific,
Okay.
Ugh, I'm sorry, Word of the Wild. I guess your heart is in the right place, but you have no clue what you're doing. Nathan is easily refutable here. Bill Nye was describing an effect of the curve, while Tyson was describing a visible left-to-right curvature, which, while detectable and measurable below 120,000 feet, is only barely visible at that altitude. The story adds up fine, you just have to not be trying to deliberately confuse people the way Nathan is.
Bill Parson, 1913. So Sagnac himself, the one who made the ring laser gyroscope, because you're all about trusting the experts, he said it doesn't prove Earth rotates.
There's no such thing as ether.
I don't understand what kind of contradiction you're trying to point out here.
NASA is making money. Best way to make money is make good products. You said that, John, at the beginning of this debate, right after Taylor said NASA has no reason to lie.
No, that's
if
not.
They're faking space and getting...
That's not.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be talking while you were interrupting me, John.
Go ahead.
It's sad when Nathan tries to be as smooth as MC Toon is. To his credit, Word of the Wild is right to interject here, as he's trying to correct what was intended by his opening statement. However, the damage is done, and he simply isn't able to counter the aggressive debate style Nathan has developed.
You would not have bubbles on a 17,000 mile per hour, 5.9 miles a second. That's how fast they say it goes. And they say they built it in space and nobody got hurt, but there's no video of it. It just magnificently appeared out of nowhere. That's freaking hilarious, right? But according to Snake, this is something you can easily test in your backyard, because earlier in his introduction, he said there's the ISS, and then later on went to say, this is all stuff you could test from your backyard. Yeah, bro, you could just get on the ISS from your backyard.
Nathan is about to completely divert from this topic to the Antarctic Treaty, and Snake is foolishly going to allow him to do it. There's 3 blatant lies Nathan said there that should have been noted. First, he was on the tail end of a bubbles in space argument. I'm going to debunk this very simply. Here's a video of the alleged space bubbles beside a video of actual bubbles from the neutral buoyancy lab where ISS work is simulated. Second, Nathan stated there is no photos or video of the construction of the ISS. At this point, I'll reference the 8th episode of my series regarding the history of the space shuttle, titled Building the ISS. Here's a snippet. There are hundreds of hours of footage of the ISS being built. Third, Nathan states the ISS cannot be tested from Earth, but that's a blatant lie. It's photographed from the ground every single day, and it remains consistent with the addition and removal of segments in spacecraft at the time. Furthermore, if one does parallax measurements when viewing the ISS, they can determine its speed and altitude, which will always work out to be roughly 7 kilometers per second at roughly 400 kilometers up. Let's move on.
Snake, you said nations can't agree on anything. Have you ever heard of an Antarctic treaty?
Oh, yeah, that's one of my favorites. What does it actually say? It says no militaries are allowed there. You're about to say that they put the military bases there, right?
No, I'm about to say it says Snake was wrong, because Snake said nations can't agree on everything, and they all agreed on the Antarctic Treaty, you bozo.
Okay.
God, dude.
And?
All right, so...
What Snake should be pointing out here is that of the 195 countries in the world, less than half agreed to the Antarctic Treaty, with a grand total of 48. However, I think he's trying to make the larger point that his hyperbole about nations agreeing is irrelevant to anything. The open discussion wraps up shortly afterwards, following a very boring back and forth about gravity. Nathan continues to incorrectly call gaslighting, and during Snake's closing remarks, leaves the discussion.
Pushing against an object that is pushing into the air, he left.
True professional. Nathan continues to be a comic book character, a parody of a human being, and unfortunately, the people going up against him are not that well prepared. It's a sad state of affairs when Nathan's aggressive and irritating tactics actually give him an advantage, and especially when his opponents hand-feed him a complete disregard of the entire space industry. Maybe I should get back into debates. I could annihilate Nathan without any problem. If you enjoy this content, consider hitting the subscribe button. If you really enjoy this content, consider donating on Patreon, becoming a member, buying some of my books on Amazon, or buying some of my merch. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.